did you come from Ireland to America?
I came to America, actually, to Minneapolis, Minnesota in 1987. April 16th, 1987. I had worked after I left college in Ireland. I went to, I'm from County Mayo in Ireland, but I went to work in Riyadh in Saudi Arabia, and I like to joke with people that I was flogging milk. I was launching a dairy products brand. Flogging milk to the Arabs. 37 years later, I'm flogging whiskey to the Yanks. Now, it doesn't sound like progress, but if it was the other way around, I'd be the one getting flogged. Really. Seeing that it's illegal out there to sell whiskey. You know, I had actually worked in the corporate world. I went to Minnesota. I thought I'd be there for maybe a year or two. After 5 years there, I got fed up with the corporate world, and I said, like any self-respecting Irish guy, what am I going to do? I'm going to open an Irish pub. And I did. And really, somebody said, well, you must have had good experience working in an Irish pub. And I said, well, I did in a bar when I was a kid, like, and so forth, but they only had 2 ingredients in every drink, and one was a glass, and so that doesn't really qualify you for a whole lot. I mean, there was no ice, no straws, no fruit, God forbid. Nobody suffered from scurvy in my town. And so it wasn't a great experience, but I did get into it, and I started to really work with and hire and make partners of really good people. Actually, they're the people that actually own and run the pubs now. So I had 4 pubs in the Twin Cities, and one of our values was really going left when everybody went right, and really kind of being curious and wanting to do things a little bit different, not from a snobby sort of a way, but just make the journey a bit more interesting. And that's really how the whiskey came about. So it is sat around one night after the bar closes, as one does, and we liked to joke that we never had a good idea over a cup of coffee. We were awake, but no good ideas. Blank, right? You have to have a little bit of Irish whiskey. And that's when the good ideas start to come out. And so we started to talk, and I asked the question, honestly, what would have to happen for us to sell as much Irish whiskey in the summer as we do in the winter? So we began to develop the idea of creating our own whiskey. Obviously, it had to come from Ireland. You can't call it Irish whiskey if it's not distilled and blended in Ireland and shipped over. All right, here's the thing. I tell all my wonderful friends from Scotland, Kentucky, Tennessee, and Canada, and anywhere else, Japan, it doesn't, you name it, I'll tell them, anywhere that's making whiskey, they would all be barrel aging water if it wasn't for the Irish. See that we invented whiskey, right? Ishka ba, water of life. They couldn't pronounce, the English soldiers that were running Ireland couldn't pronounce Ishka, water. And so Ishka became whiskey, and that's where whiskey came from. So the difference is we're the guys that actually created it, we perfected it, and they've been trying to work on improving it ever since, but they've a ways to go. So we distill it twice versus 3 times for other Irish whiskies. Twice, similar to Scotches twice as well. But the reason we, honestly, that we're distilling it twice is so that the taste of the whiskey or the flavour of the whiskey will stand up in a mixed drink, or in an Irish coffee, well, that's a mixed drink, or hot toddy, or a big ginger, or trademark drink, etc. And then we age it 4 years versus 3 years. It has to be aged for 3 years to be called, have an Irish whiskey label on it. Made in Ireland.
And of course the whiskey is named after your mother and aunt, 2
Correct.
Gingers.
Yes.
So did they drink a lot of whiskey?
Well, my aunt now managed to put down a fair amount, and she smoked and drank almost to the end, and she lived to be 94. My mother lived to be 88, and my mother settled in our hometown in Ballyhonus. She had me when she was 43, my father was 48, they were 3rd cousins, so my kid says that any wonder I ended up the way that I am. My aunt never married, God's honest truth, my aunt never married. Delia was her name, Mary was my mother, and she worked for the government, Dáil Éireann in Dublin, and travelled the world. And she was quite the character. She take no prisoners, never saw her lose an argument in her entire life. And so all of the work that they did, and really more about their attitude and their inspiration, is really kind of a wellspring of motivation or inspiration for myself in many things in life. And so when I wanted to go left in terms of the branding of the whiskey, that's why we have a whiskey label that doesn't look like any other whiskey label. The idea was that it would look like a bookend. So it was about write your own stories instead of telling somebody else's story. Write your own story. We're not snobs. The quality of the product is fantastic inside, but we can have fun and drink with friends or with ice. I mean, so not taking ourselves all that serious, etc. And I got a lot of that from them. Or as I like to say, this whiskey can stand on its own 2 feet, even if you can't. Right? Again, a lot of the humour is important for me to put it into it, to be very grounded and to just not, get too caught up in yourself for what you're doing, and that, encourage and help people along the way in life and so forth. And that's a lot of what the brand is about. The heart of it is about encouragement and support for people and people acting on their ideas.
Well, tell me about some cocktails you like to make with it.
Well, obviously, we have one which is our trademark drink. I mean, who has trademark cocktails? Nobody has got trademark cocktails. And I used to wonder how come nobody ever trademarked Cosmopolitan, Irish coffee, whatever it is. So we created a drink for pubs, for egalitarian gathering spots, which was a Collins glass, ice, 2 gingers Irish whiskey, ginger ale, lemon and lime, warding off scurvy, 1 drink at a time. It also reminds me of the Irish flag. Kind of. It is. Kind of.
A little bit.
It's kind of. Put a little bit of white in there as well. And I mean, that was a drink with ginger ale or with diet ginger ale for a skinny ginger. And the idea, we trademarked it, the idea was that this was a drink that you could serve in a pub, in a bar, and it was fast to make, it was refreshing, you could taste the whiskey in it, but it wasn't overpowering. And yet you could also sell it at the exact same price as a beer. Now, I had it in an old-fashioned last night because I was on the plane flying here, and I happened to sit with a guy and we started chatting, and we were talking about what we did, and I told him what I was in. I'm in flogging whiskey, Irish whiskey, 2 gingers. He said, 2 gingers? He said, I had it in an old-fashioned last night in Minneapolis. It happened to be in one of my former pubs, as it happens. So that was some good fortune. And he said it was fantastic. And so I ordered an old-fashioned with 2 gingers last night. It did taste really good. We have, on our website we put a whole bunch of different cocktails, etc. Most of them have more than 2 ingredients, and I would not be qualified to make them, but you got to play to your strengths, right?
Right. So you're traveling around the country
Yes.
in this trailer.
Yes.
It's an Airstream trailer, and it's got a bar and a TV and a nice...
All the necessities.
It's great. So why did you want to do the Airstream trailer?
Well, the Airstream, my wife loves Airstreams. She has pictures of them around the house. It's got a style to it, and I would say a personality that really I think is kind of 2 gingers, to me. And so it just seemed like, yeah, why not? I do joke, and I say, I thought it was a Gulf Stream, not an Airstream.
Right.
Really, I think we're going to have to sell a bit more whiskey before it becomes a Gulf Stream, right?